Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I still want to know what dancing school that NOAA goes to. I've never seen anybody dance around the answers. I mean, it amazes me. I mean, we want to find that out. One question I want to, find out, Mr. Chairman. It's important because I have sat here and listened to all these different words and have not answered the questions. Gentlemen from Texas, gentlemen from Florida, gentlemen from New Jersey have not answered the questions. And it frustrates me. Like, even last week we had a hearing. And we learned that one of the reasons NOAA knows so little about the stellar sea lions in western Aleutian Islands is because one part of your own agency denied the permits for your own scientists and another part of the agency to do the research. How do you expect us to trust you in this proposal when your agency is going to develop a nationwide ocean plan and you don't even issue permits to yourself? How did that happen, by the way? Because the guy I asked didn't know why. Doctor, you're head of this operation. What happened?
I'm not sure what you're asking me, sir.
Well, NIPS asked for permission to go out and stellar sea lions. Is that correct? And your agency wouldn't issue the permit to go out and they know about the stellar sea lions. That happened. We have the documentation on it. And yet you are asking us to have this thing, guys. And gentlemen, look at this plan. This is a classic example of Washington trying to solve a problem that does not exist. And by the way, Doctor, in the industry, who supports this program? You keep referring to the industry supports it.
We've heard many different industries.
Who supports it?
The ones that I've spoken to directly include those interested in wind energy.
Power, that's good for Washington, D.C. Anybody in the fishing industry?
Yes.
Where?
Quite a few fishermen.
Where?
Many of the fishery management councils.
Who were they? Anybody in the oil industry?
Anybody in what?
The oil industry?
Most of the oil industry folks that have testified at hearings have indicated concern.
Anybody in the mining industry?
I haven't spoken to anyone in
Anybody in the agricultural industry?
I haven't spoken to them.
Who in the industry other than wind power supports this program?
Fishermen.
Which fishermen?
The fishery management councils.
Where? Who?
Mid-Atlantic, for example.
Mid-Atlantic, that's a good operation, Mid-Atlantic. Same one that you put catch shares involved into. You state that the result of the National Ocean Policy creates a new fisheries regulatory process that competes with and threatens to supersede the Magnuson-Stevenson Act. Is that true?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that, please?
In the last hearing we had, the result is that the National Ocean Policy creates a new fisheries regulatory process that competes with and threatens to supersede the Magnuson-Stevenson Act. And does that supersede the Magnuson-Stevenson Act?
No.
It doesn't. And yet we have down here eco-based management program, we have climate change program, and we have Fishing Council sets forth the fishing policy, and yet this executive order would supersede the Magnuson Act if it's put in place. You say it does not.
The executive order does not conflict with, and it doesn't supersede. All existing regulations remain. All existing authorities remain. The Magnuson-Stevens Act
But if
remains.
you have a fishing policy and yet the ocean policy differs, don't you think that's another layer of regulatory law?
The National Ocean Policy provides an opportunity for integrating across the existing regulations.
Who has the authority over fish?
The Secretary of Commerce.
Secretary of Commerce. And this issue in the executive order, who would have the authority over fish?
The Secretary of Commerce.
Period. There would be no denying or fishing zone management. It would conflict with the Magnuson Act. If the council says it's right to fish here and this board said no, or this commission said no, which would have the priority right?
That commission is not making decisions having to do with fishing.
If there's a conflict of management zone versus the Magnuson Act, who would have the right? The council?
The fishery management councils.
The council would take it over there.
The fishery management councils have the authority to create fishery management plans.
Would there be a possibility of a lawsuit from an outside group saying you didn't take interest in this? Or so there was a conflict there?
I'm not going to speculate on possible lawsuits.
If we were to add something in this legislation, say no lawsuits could occur when there's a difference of opinion about the management of an area, would you support that?
I'm not going to speculate about lawsuits.
Would you support the inability to have interest groups stop the Fishing Council of implementing a program if the ocean policy was different?
The Fishery Management Councils have the authority to create the plans, and the Secretary approves those or not. That will not change.
It will not change, but you have another plan under this Policy Act. That means someone on the other side said it wasn't taking consideration on council's wrong, the council would be sued and they would stop the fishing process. So I would suggest if you want this thing to go anywhere, you ought to say when there's a conflict, the existing councils will have the proratory right. If you don't want to go anywhere, it proves that this is what I said. This is another overreach by the federal government, quote, solving a problem that doesn't exist. I'm more interested in the fisheries, I'll be right up front with you. Because I watched what you did with my Steller sea lions when your own agency wouldn't issue a permit.